Great. Okay. So yeah, hi everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the grand final round of ALSA Econ 2024. First and foremost, congratulations to all grand finalists for reaching this grand final round. It's very, very interesting to see all the previous rounds. Before we start, let me introduce the stellar educators who are going to be judging this grand final round. First, in the chairing this round, we have Kimberly. Kimberly is the grand finalist and top 10 best speaker of Jogja Debating Forum Open 2023, overall best independent judge of ALSA Ecom 2023, and a third best judge of Nova 2023. Next, we have Danesh, the gold medalist of NSCC 2022, champion of Argumentum Schools 2022, Asian English Olympics 2024, and Tarkanusara 2024. Next, paneling this round, we also have Mbak Asri Agustina. She is an excellent and very experienced judge. We're so glad to have her in the grand final round, paneling this round. Next, we also have Viola paneling this round. Viola is a champion of National English Olympics and Asian English Olympics 2024. Viola is also an invited adjudicator of Academy 2023 and LDBI 2023. We also have Kamaida, the best independent adjudicator and co-eighth best overall adjudicator of IVET 2023. Kamaida is also the second runner-up of ALSA UE 2023, EFL grand finalist of Shanghai Hanoi ABP 2021. Next, we also have Ka Axel. Ka Axel is a semi-finalist of NUDC 2022, runner-up of ANDO 2021, the deputy core adjudicator of UMDC 2023. And last but not least, paneling this round, we have the wonderful Kariski, the EFL pre-finalist of Malaysia Asian British Parliamentary 2023, CAP member of ALSA English Competition, University of Indonesia 2023, and also Newbies 2023. As well as top 10 best speaker of ALSA Ecom 2022, SDO 2022, IVET 2023, AEO 2023, and AEO 2024. A quick note that there will be no timer, so I hope that all debaters will time keep themselves throughout this grand final round. Under the motion, this House would allow the Court of Public Opinion to significantly influence the decision on high-profile cases. I welcome the Prime Minister to start the debate. Hear, hear. Oh, also for every debaters, I hope that you guys can turn on your camera throughout the debate. Thank you.
Okay, setting up my timer. Before I do my speech, am I clearly audible?
Loud and clear.
Okay. For POI, please just unmute. I'll try to take on it. Starting my speech in 3, 2. The law in and of itself is created upon the moral norms that society believes in, done through means such as your elected representative. Creation of law is of course important, but we believe that the interpretation itself is way more important because it directly affects the decision on which the law is interpreted in the future and such proceedings that you may be affected in. And we think that that should be democratic as well. So proud to propose. A few points of setup before I get into my points. Firstly, what are high-profile cases? These are cases that have gone viral on social media, and a lot of people have cast their opinion on it, for example, tweeting on it on Twitter. It impacts a lot of identities, like the Sambo case was a symbol of how powerful people got to cover up their crime, and things like the OG. High-profile cases inherently taps into people's morality because like it makes people question their morality and like make them interpret the case from a moral basis that they believe in. Usually stimulated by the fact that the judge's decision or like decision is questionable. And for example, like that means that petty cases, for example, your personal cases probably won't be picked up by the media and probably won't be touched by this motion because that's going to be like it's not something that is morally questionable or like it isn't going to go viral on social media. So now, what does this look? What does this motion look like when we propose it? We allow the court of public opinion to have a say in it. The mechanism in which the court is upvoted on it is going to be still maintained. Like the final say is always going to be on like the judge who's knowledgeable on this field. This is something like an extension of the status quo. We think that this is still reasonable because like we already have the jury system. But it does not mean we immediately accept all opinions and count them and count. We filter through, of course, reasoning, and if there's a significant demand for like something to be changed, we of course is going to change it and like follow the court of opinion in general. So the delta is on op, it's not taken into account, and unless it's formally brought up as evidence, that means that they do not actually they do not accept the opinions of the court of public opinion. Now, how big of a role does the court of public opinion have? We believe that because it's significant, we believe that 50% of like the decision will still come from the jury, but the others 50% will come from the court of public opinion because it's significant. Two arguments I'll be bringing in my speech. Firstly, why is the court of public opinion a reliable metric of decision, making it a fair decision-making process? And secondly, why this is the best representation of the principle of democracy. Jumping into my first argument, what is the court of public opinion in to begin with? I think that they mostly base their opinions on their innate morality in making that decision. You see that not from the technical point of view, but a moral one they can and empathize. That's what the media attaches on, not the other way around. That means that the opposition cannot say the media sways and control the court of public opinions because the media only profits if their coverage supports the existing sentiment or else nobody watches them. It means there's many other unfiltered alternatives media like Twitter. Now, this is also a more diverse version of the jury system because it's more diverse. It's bigger in scope. It's way more diverse. So yes, you do have biased people in the court of public opinion, but it's diluted because there's just so many people involved. Opinions are always diverse. Opposition cannot say that these people can be swayed by lawyers that propose them, etc., because it's quite symmetric. The tipping point here is that people are more likely to be strong in their stances because they have distinct opinions. These are people that are relied on for their sole purpose of bringing this insight. They have a moral duty to do it. What is the comparative then? What is the judge alone not a reliable metric of success? Early judges are also human. They have innate underlying biases. They might have like lived in the same childhood town or like experienced the same childhood problems, which doesn't get screened by because people assume it doesn't matter to their case. But that is something that lawyers can exploit. So if their biggest problem with our case is the bias, under their side, one biased person means you might give an unfair sentence. Meanwhile, on ours, there is a more space for margin of error because it's more like a lot of more people involved. And lawyers are made to like exploit these biases. Judges are influenced by good lawyers who are expensive because firstly, they understand the intricacies of how to bend the interpretation of law for their favor. Secondly, they profile the judges, background check on them, see what like, rhetorics they would appeal to, just how we profile our adjudicators in the debate. That means that in status quo, people who are the victim but poor, and you get sentenced wrong. That means that it's something that is worse on their side of the house because like you only have one person who might be biased, who might get like swayed by lawyers that are good. So what is the impact of this? First, in court, if you don't have enough money, you will certainly lose because like the opponent can like, fire lawyers that can actually have time and money to screen the judge, see what they appeal to, see what they connect to, see what they resonate to. And secondly, sure, public prosecutors exist, but their energy is spread thin in many cases. That means that the quality of the judges coming from public prosecutors is of course not on par with the judges that are like paid millions of rupees. In worst case scenario, let's concede that you do not deserve that much of a punishment, but the court of public opinion questions you. At the very least, we get more discourse, which is good for getting any new angles and viewpoints that can be considered by the judge. And to some extent, more evidence like how netizens check the handbag brands used by the wives of politicians to argue for corruption. This means that you have fairer process with less margin of error. But here's the thing. In order to criminalize someone under criminal law, there's an extremely high standard of just beyond reasonable doubt. This means that if there's any shed of doubt that you were innocent, you will be released. And you will be released. So this is not a concern that we can take. Jumping into my second argument, why this is the best representation of the principle of democracy. The character is here is law is enacted to you without having you say it, without you having to say it. Of course, like you can change the law through your DPR, but that's hard. And like you can't just change the UUD by yourself. You are born without having the power to amend or control what the UUD is going to say, like which literally constitutes your entire life, even though on paper Parliament is supposed to persuade you. Process of you saying you don't want the law is very difficult because you need to send a bunch of files to the Supreme Court, or like you need to like issue some like judicial review and stuff. But why does our side solve this? Firstly, because it's easier to voice out your opinions when it's weighed significantly and you are being taught to voice. You are given a platform. And secondly, this correlates with your right as a legal person. A decision on a case is very, very important, especially for high-profile cases, because in the system of law, lawyers and judges can refer to your specific case in all future proceedings. As a precedent on how to enact decision in the future. That means that in the future, in future instances where you are also convicted for the same example, you would have been able to exercise your democratic right to influence how the law is interpreted in the future. It means that this is your only way to speak for what. This is your only way to influence the law that affects you directly and how it is going to be interpreted in. But the parallel that we bring here is that law is formed on the basis of norm, the moral norm in a society. Therefore, I don't think it's weird to base your decision on the court of public opinion, who innately acts upon that perspective and moral norm that already exists in society. So, for these people who care about being part of the public opinion, they can speak out against it because, like, that's literally like their legal right to be able to express their opinions, to be able to express how they would like to be feel, how they like to be interpreted in the future if they were to be convicted of the same crime. And for all those reasons, we are so proud of groups.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for the wonderful speech. Now, to open the case of opposition, I welcome Leader of Opposition. Here.
Check, am I audible?
Yep, loud and clear.
Check, am I audible?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, thank you, Kak. Okay, so POI, please unmute. Everything I say doesn't mean to offend any party, just for the sake of a debate. Okay. So for starting opposition case, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Just I think it is important since the very first place to realize that public opinion eventually is so subjective because public opinion creates assumption and prejudice even before the court decides something, right? So let's go to some points of our side now. Firstly, what do we mean by not allowing this? I think in our word, headline of news about a certain crime by these high profile people will still exist, so people and societies will still know the case, but the whole process of the investigation, giving punishment and whatnot, is being closed, no live stream, etc. Everything that public says, we will not allow it to be brought to the court as a consideration if it's not proven realistically in the field. After the decision is final, that's where we will launch the result and publicate the result. Comparatively, under proposition side of the house, as the prerequisite for them to gain public opinion, you need exposure from the media to stimulate public opinion to begin with. That's why we don't want media to share about the case process before the decision is final. So, and then also let's characterize how about these high profile cases. I think it is problematic if public opinion being involved significantly, because because this is high profile cases means that the perpetrator is celebrity, government, minister, etc. People already have strong stigma and stereotype towards this kind of figure, like they hate them or like it or not, make people easily make assumption and condemning someone and neglect the procedure law in order to fulfill their prejudice. That's not definitely objective at the end of the day. So our stance here is simple and clear that we want our word doesn't significantly involve public opinion as a significant consideration in the court. Therefore, we want to create. Therefore, we will create a far more fair and objective CGS and court without being influenced by public opinion that you will never be able to ensure the credibility and whatnot. So, and then before moving to my argument, some rebuttals. Then I think when proposition try to convince you that public opinion helps with helps with diverse evidence and witness, I think this will not work effectively and significantly like they want. Simply because this is high profile cases is more high profile cases is mostly done personally and individually by the perpetrator, means that no many people can be an objective witness. So therefore, the actor you can depend to exactly only the court that can invite related witness and do direct investigation in the field. And then also, they worry about high profile people can bribe in the court, etc. I think this still happens on both sides anyway. But I will prove to you why when public opinion doesn't being involved, it is still better. I think even if proposition want to say that law is not transparent anymore and law authority can manipulate the law under our side, I think this is already unlikely to happen because we already said to you that the result will be publicated at the end. Means that all those law agents being encouraged to maintain law credibility and makes punishment as objective and clean as possible because they don't want public to backlash and vilify them. Encouragement will significantly exist under our side because because society have not known about the process, so there is where they demand more intensely because they cannot intervene to begin with. They demand more intensive fairness and don't want a dirty punishment, etc. And then so goes to my first principle argument. It's less talk, but is it justified or not to let public involve significantly in the court, right? But firstly, I think we have to analyze what's the problem under the proposition side. Why public opinion is so problematic to determine a punishment. When society condemning people like they should be punished with this and that, it is harmful under two reasons. Firstly, it putting so much pressure toward the judge and the law agents. Look, I think it happens the same in a Ahok case, for example. The moment people have really expect and demand the court to punish this and that, it what makes the court being better because the court as state authority is afraid to get cancelled by the society if their decision cannot satisfy people, for example. And B, I think CGS will be so blurry under the result of the house because it's not inherently fair or objective anymore. Because the major of the society doesn't have objective knowledge about law, KUHP, etc. They don't also get involved in the investigation and whatnot. It is what make law allowed by the public opinion will be so blurry under proposition side of the house. So this problem can be linking to the argument about justification. I think firstly, status quo is enough. The moment when we already have procedure and material law coexist together means that decision making calculus in the court is already as objective as possible because they require evidences, witness, and whatnot before punishing someone. This is unlikely to happen under proposition side because two things. A, society condemn people based on that assumption. If they don't like a certain figure, they will weaponize their hater to accuse anything to make the punishment become harder and harder. But if you like the figure, for example, you will try as best to protect them and whatnot. Look, I think this is not what CGS is supposed to be. You don't punish someone because you hate them or having stereotype towards them. People's punishment should be proportional to what crime they have done. If you let public opinion get significant influence in the court, CGS will lose its credibility because law becomes subjective and whatnot. And then B, yes, even if people smart enough to do research, etc., no, I think it is not enough to have significant influence until it can affect the decision of the authority in the court, for example, because those law agents in the court already have far deeper knowledge about this. At least without public opinion, it ensures a more objective atmosphere without getting opinion and whatnot. Even though the court have ethics code, etc., it is still better to make everything controllable and in line without being intervened by the public opinion that is so subjective. So the way is that we can make a fair CGS without allowing without allowing public opinion to have a significant role in influencing a decision. And then goes to my second area. Let's talk about how can we create a better CGS. Firstly, I think CGS is so inherent about the closure to the victim and the society, right? When the result being publicated to the society, if the society don't feeling satisfied with the decision, social sanction still exists if they want. But every formal punishment, i.e., sentencing, prison, taking away wealth, will be fully cannot be intervened by the public opinion. This is good under two reasons. Firstly, I think CJS will be more clear and not blurry because the formal punishment is objectively determined by the court. No public opinion asking for longer prison period, whereas it is not needed to begin with. It is what makes CJS also fair for the perpetrator and gives punishment according precisely to their fault. And then also B, the social sanction is more justified because when the perpetrator go out from the jail, for example, means that they are no longer attached to the punishment from the court, and society has the right to avoid themselves from those ex-perpetrator. This will never be achieved if you allow public opinion to have too big influence, too big influence more than the power they actually has to see the very first place. So the way in this argument is that also we conclude that we can protect the objectivity of the law and give closure for the society as well. So above all of this reason, we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leader of Opposition, for the wonderful speech. Now, to extend the case of government side of the House, I welcome Deputy Prime Minister here.
Sorry, she's trying to enter this. Please give her a moment.
Sure.
Hello? Is this audible enough? Because I can't connect my earphones.
Yes, it's loud and clear.
Okay. POI?
Sorry. Can you try saying a fuller sentence? Because it might, yeah, just want to see if it's gonna be clearer.
Oh, hold on. Court of Public Opinion.
Yeah, can you try adjusting your microphone, please? Because it's a bit like sometimes the audio is gone in some of the words.
Make it louder. Atau pakai earphones? Yeah, I'm trying to earphones. I don't know if this works. Okay, I can stop. Huh? It doesn't work. Wait. Am I audible and visible?
Can you try reading the motion?
Wait, let me. Why? This House would allow the Court of Public Opinion to significantly influence decisions on high-profile cases. Is that clear enough?
Yeah, clear as long as you hold the mic in this distance.
Oh, okay. Before that, since this is grand finals, just quick shout out to our favorite, to our beloved coach, Kak Kushai and Kak Vanes. Thank you so much for all the help that you've given us, all this law matter that you've given us, and thank you for my amazing teammates, Theo and Ira. I love you both. And yeah, thank you to our opponents as well. Mandu, very awesome. POI, just unmute. Pronouns are she, they. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. 2 points of clarification on the top of my speech. Firstly, the thing is, they still filter your court of public opinion, right? It does not mean that they take in literally every opinion that comes in. Like if there's like somebody using the audio, "Mom, I'm in love with a criminal," that does not count. They use clear and concrete standards, as in it needs to be like an argument with a base, for instance. So simply bandwagoning just doesn't work in this scenario. And then they said that people are racist. But my question to you is, that's so funny because judges literally can be racist too, because judges are still human that are raised with like parents, human parents, and are subject to human biases. We say that at least under our side of the house, there's a much higher margin of error because we allow more people to participate. Like for instance, Supreme Court judges literally have conservative leaning, and that is in the Supreme Court. But secondly, their mechanism is very problematic because they say that they want to censor evidence after and they only release it after the entire trial is done. We say that that is really problematic because that is a loophole for many shady things to happen. For instance, for unfair prosecution and etc. And by the time that you want to have an opinion on that court case, it's basically already closed. But move on to my first flash then under why we get like better decisions and fairer decisions under our side. We say that high profile cases are high profile because people think that there's a problem in those cases. People think that the decision and that what the judges may be leaning towards can be problematic. For instance, like the Sambo case, because the judges are like leaning or something like that. Or for instance, like the rape cases of children in Korea. Like these children are raped, but literally those people who did all those really mean things to them only go to prison for a really short amount of time because of the loophole in the justice system, because they said that if you are drunk while you're doing a crime, you get a much lighter sentence. That is the scenarios in which our mechanism comes into play. But then their response was, oh, court of public opinion is highly subjective, therefore it is invalid. But look, this is literally an argument for banning democracy. So my question is simple: do you support this dictatorship under your side of the house? Because if you say that people's opinion are subjective and therefore that means it's invalid, that means literally every opinion ever of everyone ever is also invalid. That means opinions such as voting and etc. should also be invalid under your side. You need to explain why is that different. But secondly, law itself is subjective. Sure, we have set rules, but those rules are still interpreted by people, namely judges, right? For instance, like the Second Amendment, it says that you have the rights to arm yourself, but it does not specify what kind of arms you're allowed to arm yourself with, and therefore that is still subjective. But thirdly, yes, we actually concede and say, sure, people are easily swayed, but that is exactly why it's good. Because the reason why people are influenced are usually because it resonates with them morally. Like morality is literally the basis of law. Like the reason why criminal law exists because it is digged from the literal state values. So we say that the people are the best representation of this, and therefore they should be allowed to like have a voice. But lastly, we want to say that there are actually distinct opinions even in the court of public opinions. Like for instance, Twitter people creating new arguments. For instance, other like law experts in TikTok voicing out their opinions and people choosing which one to support. And we think that that is productive discourse, and therefore it's not just automatic bandwagon. You need to explain why those mechanisms don't work. But then they said that public opinion doesn't take into account objective evidence brought up by the case. We say that this is not true at all because high profile court proceedings are usually streamed on social media because of the nature of it being high profile case, right? Like the case of Jessica and Mirna, and that means that the evidence are always available to be taken into account by the public. It is always scrutinized. We actually flip this and say that evidence will be more scrutinized under our side of the house because evidence is not some obscure detail. You realize that your voice matters, and therefore you have more incentive to be responsible and to use that and to scrutinize that that evidence properly, right? But then fifth, we say that people have a moral duty the moment you allow this, because people feel like their decisions actually matter, and therefore they have the moral duty to not do all of those really racist things that they said they will. But lastly, then they say that judges will be afraid to be canceled by society. But two things: firstly, if Poco corners you, for instance, if the public court of opinion corners you, for instance, you're probably culpable anyways, right? For you to be on the bad side of many people, you did something wrong very morally. But secondly, but realize that judges always have a legitimate basis. They won't always be that swayed, right? Because some judges are biased, some of them are not. We say that those unbiased ones cancel all of these bad stuff out under our side of the house. But why does it actually lead to more representative decision, right? Because we say that society is already progressive, therefore it's unlikely for them to do stuff in the basis of race. race or in the basis of whether or not someone is good looking. In cases in which that is true, we say that those are minority, and by statistics, it means that their case only works on an edge scenario, and that loses them the debate. But secondly, it's worse under your side because juries are formed in small numbers of like 10, which means you inevitably invite a racist into your jury. They have literally so much power because that is like 10% of the sample, and because of that, you have like a small sample. But realize that the threshold for law to be considered, like criminal law, for you to be culpable or not culpable, is very, very high because you need to be beyond reasonable doubt, and that works in both ways, right? It's high threshold under both sides, whether or not you're the victim or you're the prosecutor. So when someone is about to get prosecuted wrongfully, people try to shed that doubt if they think that this person shouldn't be prosecuted. For instance, people who are accused of rape, even though they didn't actually do it. But in times of which you're trying to prove your rapist to be wrong when they did rape you, we say that people will be helpful in like helping you find evidence and argumentations, etc. The comparative here is simple. They need to prove why judges are 100% reliable all the time, and we do not need any external factors. And they cannot take that for granted and just say, oh, it's because they go to law school. Well, then literally, law school does not remove the fact that you're still human and you still have bias, and there's still a big margin of error. We say that this margin of error comes in two things. Firstly, by the time in like which you judge, right? If you're doing the hearing at night, for instance, you're tired, you just want to go home because you're still human anyways. But secondly, things like personal bias, for instance, the fact that you were raised by parents who are humans, parents who also have leanings, and you go through life also as a human, and so on and so forth. Like for instance, lawyers who create cases and tell the stories of their clients as really hardworking people might appeal to one judge but might not appeal to another. Meanwhile, the court of public opinions has many facets and dynamics and presents like lots of alternate viewpoints and so on and so forth. So we think that on the weighing here is simple. We have a higher margin of error. Our side is safer, our side is fairer, and that is just simple. But moving on to my second question, under the principle of democracy and how we better uphold that. So what we told you here was very simple, that people should have the right to this because this is literally analogous to democracy in three reasons. Because firstly, this determines many facets of your life, because law is the definition of the state value. Therefore, we say that because you are basically under the control of the state, you also have the right to be able to control the state. But secondly, law has an overwhelming amount of coercive power, as in if you are already prosecuted, there's nothing you can do about it. You need to go to jail if they say that you have to go to jail. Therefore, we say that the only way in which you can hold this law accountable is for you to also have a say in it. And therefore, this is analogous to democracy, basically. But thirdly, you cannot opt out of law because just because you move states, for instance, you are still going to be subject to law, and then you cannot escape law. No matter where you go, you will always be like subject of it. And realize that old cases are used as a basis of future cases, especially in high profile cases. This is literally going to be the cases that people hear in law studies, like those like Anak Hukum, probably Justin will also hear about like your law study and so on and so forth. And you will be subject to this later if you are going to like be prosecuted in the same crime. And for all those reasons, so proud to propose.
Thank you so much, Deputy Prime Minister, for the wonderful speech. Now to extend the case of opposition, I welcome Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Right. Check. Am I audible and visible?
For me, it's audible and visible, but for the judges, can confirm as well.
Yep, audible and visible.
Okay. Right. Jennifer and her POI preference, just unmute. Probably take one POI in the minute of 5 if I can. Right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. When Ahok is considered to have committed religious blasphemy, society literally expect him to get punished like really bad. This is swaying public's opinion, creating bias and separatism within the majority and minority communities in Indonesia. This is likely under yours of the House proud to oppose. Let's frame their logical fallacies. Let's start with PM, right? Firstly, they told you that the decision will be 50-50. They also want a jury, not only like the judges, right? Like in the US, for example. Three things. First, this is already existing in status quo. Secondly, this is a proposed motions, means you need to create a new idea, not based on the status quo, and we don't entirely get why status quo isn't enough. Thirdly, if it's 50-50, what if there's a certain case where society opposing the punishment and not like agreeing to the judges and whatnot? Secondly, PM told you that if you don't have money, you will most likely to lose under Arthur of the House. This is a high profile cases where the prosecutor will be so good, the lawyer will also be good. So if you lose, you can aju banding anyways in the counterfactual, and I will talk about it in my extensions about like Ferdi Sambo can argue about and whatnot. And secondly, in the DPM, they told you that society are subjective. There's a principle of democracy. I think society or jury that you're proposing is likely to discriminate because of two things. First, because it's so diverse, they have different background, different mindset, and etc. This means they have the different I don't know, they could see something differently and they could be discriminated. Secondly, their judging can based on like intuition, not based on their evidence, because they don't have a certain background, like educational background, like law background or whatnot. Because the decision making and like but the decision making or like how long is the punishment is still to the judge, not by the jury. But the judge can be swayed by this jury since you're opening up a certain discussion. Even you agree, right, that judge under ours of the house can be discriminative also. So your side is more likely since you have such a diverse background and whatnot. So to clarify, discourses within under hours of the house will still exist. So when you say that discourses within the TikToks, like people who have law background, education background will create discourse and whatnot, it's not exclusive because status quo already exists. First question in the idea of unfair sentence. PM told you that there's expensive lawyer and bribery. Let's start with expensive lawyers. Two things. First, it's symmetrical within both sides anyway. People who have high profile cases would want a protection and justice. That's why they will hire an expensive lawyer to run away from their problem or punishment or reducing their punishment. Secondly, I think lawyers will choose also who's like the person that they try to defend, because the prerequisite of a good career for lawyer is based on how good their name is. For example, if you're Bataknis, then you're a good lawyer, for example, or their past winning case, right? I.e., if you're defending a corruption case or like organized crimes like Ferdi Sambo, usually the lawyer who are wanting to obtain exposure. Like I saw in Deddy's Kobuser podcast where a lawyer defend like guru pesantren that sexual harass their students. Like I'm sorry, usually lawyers who are expensive and popular are so scared to defend those kind of things. That's why lawyer will opt into that kind of case to gain exposure. But secondly, about bribery, right? Two things. First, aside from there's no likelihood, I'll give you analysis why this is untrue. I think judges or prosecutors of course have the standards, right, as like Vandelito told you, to be independent, for example. So they shouldn't neglect those kind of standards of regulation or like the regulation. That's their job, to provide justice within the law enforcement. So DPM don't say that they are racist and whatnot. Your side is more likely to be racist because more people opt into that as a jury. So diverse opinion creates subjectivity in and of itself. Secondly, even if it's true, it happens symmetrically because of two things. I think shitty CGS is based on what country that you lived in. If you live in Indonesia, bribery cases is literally a lot, right? But in European country, the CGS inherently good. But secondly, I think it's even worse on the comparison under yours of the house because of two things. First, powerful people could hire the society to do buzzers, like Jessica Copy Cyanida case, where the perpetrators literally like where like the case until right now we don't know the perpetrators is, right? This means like they could hire like they hire the people to like closing the case and whatnot. Secondly, high profile people can be the people who have big influence, like artists. They will create biases. Even if there's no bribe under yours of the house, bias will make CGS so unlawful under yours of the house. That's why the weighing here, the intensity of harm is less likely and more worse under theirs of the house. But before extension, POI. 3, 2, 1. No engagement, they agree. Moving on to extension then, why do we satisfy society anyways? Because this is something that they want to champion, right? The prerequisite of our case is two things. First, the process in the court, we're not going to allow live streaming or recording, so it's going to be really private. Secondly, society can see the result directly from the news institution like Kompas and etc. after the process or before the before the court or the decision making towards punishment already released, basically after the court or before the court, right? Why then this is inherently enough? Let's analyze the pillars of CGS. Firstly, retribution. We gave them the fair punishment that they deserve based on their action. This is based on the lawyer and the prosecutor debate or like the evidence. So judge will evaluate the crime based into that without any certain pressure from the society. Secondly, protection. Because we're going to prevent a certain biases, the idea of social sanction will still exist anyway under Arthur of the house. So I think it's inherently enough to satisfy the society in and of itself, and we protect both sides, not only the perpetrators but also the victims itself. That's why we create justice. Thirdly, the deterrence effect. The moment when the judges give you the punishment, you will literally rot in jail if you do criminalization. Usually high profile cases do corruption, like law enforcement will impoverish them, i.e. Rafael Alun case. Even if it's not enough, why the counterfactual already exists, right? I told you, like big cases like Ferdi Sambo, you can appeal or aju banding. If the prosecute aren't satisfied with the end result of the court, they can aju banding, right? So the process is from Pengadilan Negeri, Pengadilan Tinggi, and then Mahkamah Agung at the end. This is important to check and recheck the punishment. Does it really fulfill the retribution or not? The process of learning exists under our sort of the house. Under your side, the process of learning will be so bad because of two things. Firstly, you as a judge will be pressured by the society because humans' nature are scared of getting cancelled. Unfair CGS, but the prerequisite of a good career for judges also is based on their exposure of their name or cases that they've done, right? So it's less likely for other party to bribe you because the society will know under our sort of the house. Secondly, these high-profile people have a huge influence, as I told you, within people like celebrities like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have a lot of fans. People in power like stakeholder could pay buzzer to create public opinion that's inherently biasing towards them at the end of the day. Under your side, the decision is created by how the public shape its opinion and create a certain conspiracy theory and whatnot that derives the actual truth and the theory is right, which create a massive information is likely. So it's very harmful because you sway public and they will follow whatever the majority of people follow because people will follow under yours of the house. The implication here, CGS won't be objective under yours of the house. It's based on public opinion, not inherently by the evidence. So your mechanism already gone.
Thank you so much, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Just a quick reminder, because this is ALSA Econ 2024, it's an institutional-based debate, and as well as this debate is being recorded, please remain equitable by the word choices. And to close the substantive case of government, I welcome Government Whip. Here.
Give me time to just tidy up my speech and set my timer. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Hi, sorry, I don't think I can turn my camera on because I've been having really bad connection issues from before. Hope that's okay.
Yep, fine.
Thank you. Before I'd like to start my speech, I'd like to just quickly say thank you to everyone, especially our coaches. Yeah, especially for those who gave us like the motivation and those who gave us the late night kuliah hukum like just 3 days ago. Kak Kushai, Kak Panas, and also Kak Bobby. Thank you so much. Also, shout out to my teammates, Rio and Zaya, and also my teammates last year, Sama and Weka. I hope this one compensate our last year run. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much. Like, I've really enjoyed like the tourney overall. Yeah, you know who you are. I love all of you guys. Okay. Yeah, also short trigger warning. Can you open this, please? Short trigger warning. Everything that I'll be talking about is only for the sake of competitive debating. Only because this is recorded. I hope this doesn't tarnish my reputation or something. Because I would need that. So yeah. You guys just unmute yourself. I'll take one if I have any. Mm. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Two main clashes that I'm going to talk about in this debate. Firstly, how this continuously improves the system, and secondly, I'm going to talk about by principle why this enforces democracy and the rawest value that law is supposed to uphold. But before that, several notes as a 0.5 on top of this speech. opposition come up to this debate and talk about how high profile cases means the judge is likely to be good. No, you can't fiat that out, because the one who judges are usually judges who are on the top echelons of the court. Those old people are likely to have a conservative leaning. We counterbalance this at the point in which you allow more people into the court with I guess a more open perspective and onto things, right? But secondly, but if the judge is so fair and so good, most people would probably agree anyways, because people are not subject to bribery. They just rely on their morality. Information comes from everywhere, therefore information counterbalances each other. You can't just fiat it out that it's going to be 100% bad. You only play in your best case scenario. But then Manda says something very problematic. If you are Batak, you are a good lawyer, meaning they won't take evil people. Firstly, no. If these people can pay a lot, they will still take you as a client, because lawyer is a job. They want money. But secondly, good lawyers still defend problematic people, like Ana Sorokina's lawyer, because they have ego and they want to prove that they are able to defend the seemingly undefendable to get clout. But thirdly, especially this is a high-profile case, so it means that if you succeed to just reduce the sentence of this criminal one bit, you don't even have to prove that they are innocent. You are already going to be famous and have clients. Therefore, many lawyers are willing to take the risk. Just look at the many types of study cases that exist in status quo, like O.J. Simpson and the Dream Team and all these kind of things, right? We think at the point in which there is money in the question, oftentimes these people would take it and not prioritize your morality or whether or not these people are right to begin with. But then onto my first clash then on how this continuously improves the system, why it will lead to less sample bias. This is the first part of the clash. We already said that juries are small, right? So statistically speaking, it is possible for you to invite it is impossible for you to invite all 10 conservatives or racists as your jury, because juries are randomized, which means that your decision will be defined through one political lens. On the comparative, on our side, because you take the opinion from the entire society, the power of races are diluted by the majority of people who are progressive. So we say that it's going to be less racist under our side of the house. But public opinion cannot be strong easily by conspiracy theory, unlike what Manda says. We have flags at P1 that there's things like rationality, moral compass, or literally your brain. For people, they cannot say something just because they are FOMO or whatever, because this means that they are betraying their own self, they're betraying their own morality as a human being. So we don't think that this is something that is as one-dimensional as proposition claims them to be. But then Manda also says that good lawyers don't want to defend people who are wrong. This is just statistically not true, because somewhere or whatever has lawyers. Even Israel has lawyers, right? But he also said that expensive lawyers are symmetric. That's exactly why the jury is ineffective, because they can be profiled one by one by that very expensive lawyer that you have. If you base your decision on the public, it's harder for good lawyers to make the jury side with them by using rhetorics that resonate with them, oftentimes because they have a stronger moral standing, and we have this since P1. The reason why AHOC, their biggest case, or by the way, get prosecuted is because the voices of a specific group of people cancels out the other, which are like conservative Muslims, right? And that was a political stuff. So I guess it's so much more complex than just this debate. And that's not something that you can necessarily just use as a main study case. But on our side of the house, you can't have other people as jury. This is literally the solution to your problem. This is the leeway to actually prevent more people to actually get into a jail just because the court is so focused on just a very secluded political lens of a status quo, for instance. Because under our side of the house, for instance, you can have secular progressives also within the court to actually also have a say on the things that actually goes on in the court. That is something that is only exclusive under our side of the house. How should you weigh this then? I think that therefore under our side of the house, there's going to be more accountability imposed onto the court at the point in which there are active critics or active skeptics that literally step into the court, for instance, right? They are able to see from the inside out on how the court operates and all those kind of things. They are able to also stand up and just criticize the court or criticize the decision of the court had they make something that is problematic, had they make something that is not morally aligned with, I guess, what the public wants or what they personally want as an individual. We think that this is inherently valid, because at the end of the day, this gives you a strong moral basis and questions you in that regard. But this is also a leeway to expose the court for all the bad things and all the wrongdoings that they can or they probably have done in the past. This is why I want to note that their counter on how they want to seclude the court is incredibly problematic, especially in high-profile cases, because not only when these potential criminals actively harm the values of the state, we think that it is within the right of the people of the state to actually have access to these types of information, and indirectly, it isolates the court from the voices of the people. But we also think that at the point in which the decision is also already made under your side of the house, it's incredibly harder for people to actually have a say on this, because at the end of the day, the verdict has already been made anyway, and they have yet to acknowledge or actually give us a mechanization as to how that's something something that's probably going to be catered to under their side of the house. Our counter mechanism is better. Why? Because it is a preventive measure that secludes people from the possibility of inflicting these harms in the first place. The possibility of putting someone innocent like behind bars. We actually give a preventive measures that cut people off from the pain, insofar as opposition necessarily have to make them undergo the pain in the first hand. We give you a more preventive measure. It's more effective in that regard. On to my second slash then on why this enforces democracy and the broad value that law is supposed to hold. Our case was that how as an individual you do not have autonomy of the life that you are born in. You don't have a say of the law that is inflicted onto you. You're just born one day and suddenly you have the undang-undang that is like dictated that you have to abide to. But secondly then, law at core is supposed to represent humans' moral values. We criminalize killing because obviously no one wants to die, and therefore that is the value that the law is supposed to actually represent themselves directly within the court without having to go to with like all these proxies and all that. And we say that this case actually influences you, so they have to prove why either A, court of opinion is not analogous to democracy, or B, that it's okay for you to sacrifice literal democracy. What is the weighing then? Look, this principle is incontingent to any practical benefit, and I know that it's hard to understand principles and easier to buy practicals, but law inherently exists to uphold certain principles. Therefore, insofar as opposition cannot disprove this principle, their practical benefits cannot run because this principle is a prerequisite analysis. You cannot do something with good practical benefits if it's immoral. So judges, please credit us according to what we give you. And this is why their pushes about subjectivity and objectivity doesn't work, because nothing is always objective, unlike they say. Things are always subjective as long as it comes from humans. We say, if anything, the court has been contaminated by the dirty hands of strong men that forces the law to turn the favor onto them, right? And this is the urgency that we push to you on our side of the house, that at the point in which you are able to have more perspectives, at the point in which you are actually able to change the system from internal, that's the point in which you actually get, a better law system as a whole. But then they talk about how social sanction doesn't work. Social sanction doesn't give you enough deterrence, because after you're done with jail, you go out and you're still filthy rich and all these kind of things. For all those reasons, we are so proud to win ALSA UE 2024.
Thank you so much, Government Whip, for the wonderful speech. Now, close.
Okay, let me set my own timer first. Am I audible enough, by the way?
You are audible, but you are not visible.
Yeah, I think the internet connection here is not that good. I'm afraid takut kayak disconnect tengah jalan.
Oh yeah, sure, but you're audible.
Okay, cool. Can I unmute? I'll not be reading any chats, and if there's something like sensitive issues in my speech, don't take it personally. It's just for the sake of competitive debating. And also, hi again, Naira, after the prelim 2. Okay. Going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. CGS works does not like what prop trying to spoon feed to you, right? I think it's not enough by stating or saying whether or not you agree or not if a certain person is guilty or not, right? Because exactly you need a valid reason, because CGS is not that simple. Society is a normal average person, just like you judge. You have the burden to explain why first. Society could be morally objective. Secondly, society could have the capability to understand and filterize all the information, very complicated files and evidences to actually, give a certain give a statement and let a valid statement, that's fair statement in the very first place. So biggest contribution on my speech. Firstly, I'm going to frame the basic under the question that happened. I've never been proud to be the champion of ALSA, right? 2 points of framing here. Firstly, let's start with the mechanizations, right? Rio opened the debate by telling you about on how we're going to have like jury system, public opinion, and etc. 3 reasons why this could not work. This will not fly significantly exactly because having jury is that you only pick a few people to represent the public opinion, right? So the representation is not exclusive anywhere, right? Because I think each people have different interests, especially if they're minorities, for example. They would want to defend someone who is within their race, for example. This will not likely to happen towards just because exactly they have political legitimacy or like political career to maintain, to be sustained, in order for them to be hired in the next case in a certain court. B, this is inherently confusing because and making the decision making or the weighing it in the process even harder, because you need to digest it one by one, and then you filterize it one by one, right?
See, even if they try to actually wanting to like ask the person why, then the reasons why you stand a certain side, this is crucial because different people came with different reasoning, and you need to filterize it one by one in the middle of very diverse information to begin with. Second point for framing, we don't think why status quo is not enough to begin with, right? If a certain judge is problematic or like conservative, we don't get why status quo is not inherently enough. This is a high profile cases, probably like mafia or like high criminalities, for example, means that there's no way court only being reliant into one person or like one judge only. Lots of judges probably involved or like dozens of them. And also one thing, they also have like lots of prosecutor and whatnot. Even if bias cases like MK Gibran happens because it's literally his uncle, we think that society also have the rationality to cancel them and actually questioning whether or not the decisions is true or like whether or not the decisions is fair. 2 points of cautious here. Firstly, principle is the involvement of public opinion is justified in order to fulfill the purpose of CGS. Secondly, practicality is less harm toward which side that creates less harm toward the output of the court, right? Firstly, principle is the involvement of public opinion is something justified in order to fulfill the to the purpose of CGS. Look, I think their case is only being contingent upon, oh yeah, this will create unfair sentence because yeah, judge is also human, it can create bias and etc. Few response sources, right? Firstly, under the house, this will not happen because exactly judges is someone professional like you can be reliant towards, right? Exactly because they need to be trustworthy to begin with by having big names in order to be hired in such huge cases to begin with, right? But even if people are still not satisfied enough to actually, thinking that the sentence is not unfair, is unfair and whatnot, we think that society will create a discussions, also demanded the court if they feel something is missing or something is wrong. This looks like cases like Jessica Mirna, when society demanded court to reopen the case because they feel it's something that is not, perfectly solved, for example, right? This court has happened in this student status quo. Secondly, I think also counterfactual exists. You can aju banding, for example, when the most of the people demanded you to reopen this case. This likely because government would want to actually, government status quo would want to actually, make a good image and actually prove that CGS in a certain country, in their country, is inherently better and and would want to actually provide resources people. Thirdly, I think when Zia came into this debate about, we're banning democracy, we think that transparency also exists under the house, exists the moment when the court judge already knocked 3 times, for example. Democracy exists because we're not banning their discourses, right? But even if we need to be charitable, I think it's okay because it what creates exclusivity during the process so that judges are not being pressured by the society's expectations, right? Democracy is only justified for people that, experiencing the direct harm, for example. Our side is also creating freedom of speech because we are still going to have witness, for example, and evidences also because material law during the investigations exists as the prerequisite before you determine the punishments, right? Letting significant democracy to determine court decision is very chaotic underside propositions because exactly democracy means that people have lots of different opinions in various places because they came from a different background, for example, right? People in our side of the house know the news and because they're free to have like opinion outside the court, but those 1,000 opinions will not be considered to determine the decisions, right? How then, why that is problematic under the side of the house? Three things. Firstly, CGS or like the court process during the decisions making to determine the punishment is being witnessed or like open to many people, right? Involving many parties because of the involvement of media that give access towards anyone or like any stakeholders, any layers of society. This is erasing the purpose of CGS exactly because your side is creating zero objectivity, right? Like legal evidences or like witnesses could be easily mitigated or like denied or do not have much power to begin with, just like public opinion, right? Because exactly what's crucial then, court judge getting demanded to fulfill societal expectations because their career is being contingent into like society's reactions towards the case, right? Exactly this, the important thing, the likelihood why the society or like a judge have like the likelihood also wanting to get getting pressure under their certificate, right? What's the likelihood? What's the likelihood that this looks like online societies demanding court to put sanctions towards someone else, or else society will not stop demonstrating and creating chaotic situations. B, even if they are biased, it is still inherently better under such a house because under your such a house, these judges are pressured, right? And exactly you have the burden to actually explain why the society creates better objectivity towards the cases or like giving the right point of view towards that. I mean, well, they're not professionalism. Yeah, they're just a normal average person that maybe being doctrined by the portrayal of the media regarding of the issues, right? See, I think court on trial is the crucial process during the CGS system because we think it determines the punishment of the perpetrators. This is the crucial part that anyone could not even intervene if you're not, you're not involved in the case if you're not a professional and whatnot. Second question regarding practicalities, regarding which harms, creates less harm towards the output of the court. The world that they're creating is very tokenistic because of two things. Firstly, the debate revolves around high professional cases, i.e., like cases like Harvey Lewis, for example, Amber Heard, and Johnny Depp. Means that society knows them because there are people with power, people with big stakeholders, people with fame, for example, right, which probably have fans, followers, and etc. This leads to harm under the house. People will wanting to like giving opinion because exactly they have enough big followers to actually backing up their names, or like backing up their names, because exactly they have segmentation in the very first place. Secondly, discourses that coexist under said proposition is also contingent into media, i.e. like headlines, framing, clickbait, and etc. That directly doctrine their POVs to automatically outframe someone. Meanwhile, they haven't been proven guilty, right? Which this exactly that will happen under the house because exactly media are exposing everything under side propositions para to be champion of ALSA 2024.
Thank you so much, Opposition Whip. Now, to summarize the debate in opposition, I welcome opposition reply. Here.
Right. Starting my speech. Oh, echo ya, sorry. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. To analysis why they lose this debate or their strategical flaws first. Firstly, they didn't even give you a clear mechanism. 3 things. First, if there's jury, we told you that there's no difference within the status quo. Second, if it's the decision 50-50, this means there's no effectivity within your benefit. But thirdly, Naira just give you the clearance, like the jury will be randomized, but 2 things. A, biases, discrimination will coexist under your sort of house because the background is so diverse as what I told you, especially when the people is uncontrollable, because you said that the jury will be randomized. It means you cannot control if the people progressive or the people conservative, right? B, the principle of democracy is highly contingent onto the idea if this jury are good or objective. So their side is basically insignificant. In order for you to create justice, it means that you need to obtain a good jury and objective jury and whatnot. Secondly, they assume that public in their world is fairly like objective, means that their case has no urgency at all. The objectivity will basically be the same when all of the evidence are being discovered by the court. So there's no exclusivity anyways comparing to other hours of the house. First clash on the mechanization, does it really effective or not? They prove to you 2 things. A, public opinion can be diverse and alternative. Secondly, they said under hours of the house we're cutting off the democracy. 3 things under hours of the house. A, I think public opinion is not justified to influence court decision. Why? Because public already have the prejudice towards the famous people, whether they like or hate them, and don't have a clear ethic code and enough capability like people in the court. Implies that public is inherently subjective and their statement is highly questionable. Proposition keeps playing in the safe zone as if public is an expert in law and have the same education background and whatnot. B, proposition tries to like bring about democracy, but I think it's just not logical, right? Democracy, what makes people are free to have their own personal opinion and demand. It's just straight up problematic when you can only determine one objective decision. Here, opposition never tries to like engage. Why when society in our world know about the news and like still free to discuss about it, not enough to fulfill democracies anyway? I think discourses within our side of the house will still exist. We just don't want their voice to intervene the court's decision and whatnot. See, I think thirdly, decision making under their side of the house will create a bad process of learning because of 2 things. A, society's expectation will be fulfilled because you're championing the idea of principle of democracy. This means you want the result to be done fastly, but that doesn't mean it's highly fair for the perpetrators or even the victims. Secondly, I think the tendency for judges to feel pressured is highly under the of the house because the prerequisite of continuation of this judge career is based on the society's satisfaction. So they will most likely to be subjective and feel the pressure. Second question, in terms of like catering the harms, they prove to you 2 things. A, about like under of the house, there will be like expensive lawyer, bribery coexist under out of the house. Secondly, they told you that people will agree anyway and follow the judges under our side of the house. Under our side, we prove to you 2 main things. A, their main case is actually symmetrical under both sides, because first, expensive lawyers like these perpetrators have the rights to reduce their punishment. Your side won't create fairness towards the perpetrators, therefore only biasing the victims or vice versa based on how big power you have. Because it means that 10 people are the decision maker within your side of the house, within the court. It means that there's a high possibility for them to actually to be bribed, for example. Secondly, the closure towards public society or satisfaction. We prove to you two main things. A, social sanction is already enough, because after the result are given, society will cancel you out. Secondly, even if social sanction aren't enough, we prove to you three things. A, people already satisfied if they see the perpetrators go to jail. As long as you know that the perpetrators stuck in the prison, society will feel satisfied because we create safetyness. So we'll fulfill also the pillars of CGS. B, we told you the society are rational enough, so many people can creating a discussion or demanding the government to reopen a certain case like Jessica Mira and whatnot. C, aju banding also exists, and we're doing it step by step. So if the prosecutors is satisfied because it's such a huge crime, aju banding still exists. This is what proved to you why even court being unfair under ours of the house, it's possible. There are already so many counterfactual to cater it. We don't get why it's not enough, so we're proud to win in this debate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, opposition reply. Now to close the whole debate, I welcome government reply. Here, here.
Yes. Okay. Hold on. Let me connect my earbuds. Where are your earbuds? What is it?
Is this audible enough?
Yep, it's audible for me.
Okay. Setting up my time.
Wait, it's choppy. Can you like say one full sentence, please?
Is this copy or not?
Can you please like state the motion?
This house would allow the court of public opinion to significantly influence decisions on high-profile cases.
Yes, great.
Okay. Setting up my timer. Wait. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The logic here is simple. You can bribe one judge, but you cannot bribe 275 million citizens of Indonesia. They try to symmetricize our case and say that, oh, all of our benefits also exist under their side, and like basically our harms do not exist. That is all they said, but they do not bring you any positive case or any explanation as to why things would be better under their side of the house. So 8 reasons why they've already lost this debate, actually. Firstly, their entire mechanism was contingent on proving that the card system is already enough. What we gave you was we gave you structural reasons as to why the system isn't enough. We told you that there are so many externalities in judges, the fact that they are biological humans, that they can be tired, the fact that they can be biased, and etc. And that is why that we need to introduce like a counterbalance sort of variable, which comes in the form of court of public opinions. But their response to that was just saying that, oh, those judges are gonna be good anyways for some reason, but we already told you that those reasons are not enough, right? Because the thing is, like, what the reason as to why these judges are biased to begin with are because they're just inherent humans, and that's something that you cannot change. But secondly, most of their responses is so dismissive. They said that, oh, you can just do appeals and etc. But things like that do not really answer our concern, because even if you do appeals, you are still subject to the same system, and so on and so forth, right? And all of this comes like really, really late in reply and etc. etc. But discourse under their side of the house never works anyways, because that happens after the verdict is done. They literally said it themselves that their mechanism is that they do not want any opinions while the case is running. It means that while the case is running, you have no opinions at all. All of that is going to be done after like the decision is made and etc., which means that under their side of the house, those people already get heard. But thirdly, we just question, why do we get zero objectivity? Because Michelle said there is zero objectivity on our side, because we have, but like literally we have court opinions plus real judges 50-50. If they say we have zero, that means they also have zero under their side, because it means that they say that the judges under their side are also zero. What happens under our side of the house is that we have like a double safety net, right? We say that if one variable is playing, the other variable can check and balance that variable, and therefore there's more stability under our side. But fourthly, if judges are so good like what you said, why are they easily swayed by our court of opinions if our opinions are wrong and made on the wrong legal basis, right? That just doesn't make sense. That is a missing analysis under their side. But five, why is people having so many followers meaning that they actually like matter or something like that, right? And I question why that weighs against their moral compass, like how Rio already said that most people, the reason as to why they have opinions and court of public opinions is because their moral compass tells them to do so. So why is it like going to weigh against the fact that they like a certain person, for instance? But we say that public scrutiny also happens if you like have this really controversial opinion and you support someone just because they're famous and etc. But if you credit this argument when they said that having more followers means that you will be more supported, you should also credit me if I say that it's funny that they bring Harvey Mois when the reaction of people when they found out that Sandra Dewi's husband was doing corruption is that all her fans are mad, all her fans suddenly disappear because Indonesian people are so sensitive towards corruption. If you say that you support Harvey Mois in Twitter, you will literally get cancelled. But six, they said that people have no morality. Then that is honestly so demeaning. Then what are we? Like, we are also people, right? We say that people have the moral like level baseline of morality, even if they do not understand the full extent of law, like what pasal is what means what. We say that at the very least they still have a normal judgment, like, and that judgment reflects the values of the country. That is why that should be weighed against the literal things that are written. But seven, it's still funny that they say that public discourse is not enough. They ask us why public discourse is not enough under their side. But honestly, yeah, obviously that's because you don't give them a voice at all. Literally, you said that you want to shut out people's opinions and you do not want them to have an opinion until the case is over, right? It means that they cannot say all they want under their side. Meanwhile, they can do that under our side. But it means that it's a backlash if you say that society is dumb, because you say that society will still have influence under your side of the house. That was like your safety net mechanism, basically. So it means that you just contradicted yourself. But moreover, they never really engaged to us when we told you that this is analogous to you being in democracy. And we also already gave you three analyses as to why this is analogous to democracy. All they said in response was that, oh, it's irrelevant. Well, yeah, honestly, like, why is democracy irrelevant to you, right? That is just very problematic to say. But look, this principle is incontingent to any practical benefit. And I know that it's hard to understand principles and easier to buy into practicals, but we say that this principle is a prerequisite of any practical benefit that you want to forward. So insofar as you have not completely like disshuffled that, it means that your case does not work. So proud to win.
Thank you so much, Government Reply, for the wonderful speech. As the grand final debate of this ALSA Ecom 2024 high school branch has come to an end. This marks the end of ALSA Ecom for high school. Thank you so much for the debate. On behalf of the committee, we would like to extend our gratitude for participating in ALSA Ecom 2024. We really appreciate the high enthusiasm. Don't forget to stay tuned to our closing ceremony this Tuesday. Adapt for better, connect together, and may ALSA always be one.